I'm here with Raphael Cifuentes III. Now, for those of you at home that may think the name Cifuentes sounds familiar, it should if you're into cigars, especially if you're into Cuban cigars. And so we're going to get an education here because we have cigar royalty in the building. And this is what Privada Cigar Club is all about. It's about bringing this rich history and tradition into the modern era and learning as much as we can from the people who have been involved in this industry all along. This is where your favorite cigar makers come to get their information, and that's something I'm really proud of. I'm super excited to have you here because this is history in the making. Well, so for those of you at home, I think we look at Cuban cigars and we see Cohiba as the mainstay, but Cohiba is brand new in terms of Cuban cigars. Right. Cohiba started after the embargo, once it was taken over by that madman, okay? And so that's when it started in the 60s. Before that, Partagas was, I think, it's okay to say, it was what people think of Cohiba today. It was the premier Cuban brand.
Definitely.
And that factory, that Partagas factory, it's a famous factory. We'll try to get some, Tyler, we'll throw some pictures and stuff in here. This was the premier factory. And this is what your grandfather, he purchased Partagas from the original owner.
Great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather, and then ran the factory. Mm-hmm. And by the time the embargo happened, from what I understand, your great-grandfather was so well-versed in tobacco, he was said to be the best in Cuba and was even offered the position of controlling all of Cuban tobacco for Castro.
That was one of his sons, my great-grandfather's sons.
Okay.
My great-grandfather had 3 kids.
Okay.
And
3 kids.
3 kids.
Okay.
And 5 girls.
Wow. Okay.
Had a lot of time. Actually, he went to Cuba in 1871 from Asturias, Spain.
Okay.
And he was 17 years old at that time, and got involved in the Cuban-Spanish War, evidently, because he enrolled the Spanish Army. Wow. At Puerto Bajo. He volunteered, you know. He came from a farming family, so he went to the farming area. At that time, Cuban tobacco already had a prestige and was known worldwide. It was,
and at this point, it was mainly getting shipped back to Europe.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. And so as the war kept coming and going, he started his own farming. Mm-hmm. He started buying land and became one of the best growers in Cuba. Wow. So that happens that a friend of his ended up owning a promissory note from Partagas family. Okay. And ended up being the owner of the factory. Wow. So he was a very good friend of his, and he knew that my great-grandfather had the finest tobaccos in Cuba, and asked him to run the factory for him. His name was Juan Antonio Bances. Bances was a banker, and he was also involved for some time in tobacco. Okay. But I mean, it's a real good Cuban traditional brand, but really never got to the point where Bances wanted it to have it. So my great-grandfather started picking up the business again, you know, as from Partagas factory already, because he was already managing the factory for him. Wow. And 3-4 years after that, Bances told my great-grandfather, well, you want to buy the place? Mm-hmm. So he partnered with a friend of his, Antonio Fernandez. You know, Antonio Fernandez was a very good cigar maker. Mm-hmm. He was one of the first to use cigar molds in the industry. Okay, I was thinking that when we were talking about sending these things back to Spain, is they weren't using molds yet; they were using paper to roll the cigars. There you go. Yeah, and to keep the shape completely. Yeah. Partagas factory was one of the first ones to use molds, because as my great-grandfather bought the Ramon Ollones brand as well. Oh wow. Ramon Ollones was already using the molds in the factory, and so he brought him into the Partagas factory. At the end of the day, that allowed them to speed up the process and make it a little bit more machine. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So that was like 1904, something like that. Antonio Fernandez stayed in the company until 1914. and then retired. My great-grandfather then bought another very good person, a very close friend of his, Francisco Pegopita. Francisco Pegopita is one of those persons that was well known in Cuba at that time, as he was the right hand of my great-grandfather's first wife, who passed away 4 years after marriage, after marrying my great-grandfather. But he was the right hand of this lady, and they became very tight. And he asked him, join the company, and he made him an associate in the company. And that was extremely good for him, because that allowed him to come back between Spain and Cuba for long periods of time. He married my great-grandmother. She was from a small town close to where he lived in Asturias. And, started having kids. So at the end of the day, in 1938, when he passed away, he left the cigar business and the factory. He left it to his 3 sons, and he left to the rest of the girls, the family. The houses, the different estate he had. All right, but he left the business to the guys, and they went back to Cuba. Obviously, started running kept on running the operation at that time. Ramon, who was one of my grandfather's brother, the eldest, used to run the tobacco division and farm division. And my grandfather, Raphael, run the...
Now, this is Raphael II.
That's Raphael the First.
Raphael the First,
Right,
okay.
because-
And so the father's name was?
Ramon.
Ramon, okay.
Ramon.
And then Raphael the First.
Right.
That's
Correct.
your great-grandfather?
No, that's my grandfather.
That's your grandfather?
My grandfather.
Okay, Ramon was your great-grandfather?
Ramon wasn't my great-grandfather. Then he had a son that was Ramon as well.
Okay.
Which was the eldest. Then was Raphael, and then was Manuel.
Okay.
Manuel was the youngest of the 3. And they had different functions in the factory, Ramon was running the fields and the tobacco and procurement. My grandfather Raphael was running the factory and the commercial side, and Manolo was more involved into the PR and.
So he would go back to Spain and market this stuff.
Well, he usually appointed distributors and did those sort of things. But at the end of the day, the family definitely was settled in Cuba. When he turned 20, he started working at the Partagas factory himself.
Your father?
My father.
Okay, so now, okay.
That's Raphael II.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, Brian, the families, a lot of families left Cuba without anything in their pockets, and very, they have very good businesses, and they were wealthy people,
Terrible.
But the change in my family had been exposed already to a civil war in Spain.
Yeah.
There was, so the people that were close to this Castro figure had been already in Spain and were true communists. So as my grandfather and his brothers had been involved, they knew something was coming.
Yeah.
And that things were going to be changing soon and fast in Cuba, Just because it was the same speech they heard back in 30-something in Spain.
Right, so they're reliving history again. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he moves to New York.
That's correct, but that's correct. At first, my grandfather, Raphael, moved to New York, Ramon did as well.
Okay.
And my father moved to New York as well. They started working for AMF, American Machine and Foundry Company, that was at that time was making machinery for it was just Cuba was just starting to introduce machine-made cigars because they couldn't compete with Tampa. Tampa was importing a lot of Cuban tobacco, and was.
So during this time, Tampa is making more Cuban cigars than Cuba.
Definitely, they were making about 300 million cigars, Cuban, machine-made cigars in the United States, and the Cuban factories couldn't compete because importing tobacco into the United States, handmade, had different tariffs, had different taxes, and made it almost impossible for them to compete.
Yeah.
That's curious because that situation led the industry at some point to consider building factories in Tampa, and the Cuban government at that time passed a law merely saying, well, if you produced your brand out of Cuba, you lose your brand in Cuba. So they couldn't move their productions. So they started bringing machinery into Cuba. And it was just starting as the, I'd say about 5, maybe 10 years most before the revolution took place. They were starting to make machine-made cigars from Cuba. But that was not the, that was not the.
So they're in New York and they're working for a machinery company to send these,
in order to rebuild their lives, because at the end of the day, they went to New York because at first thinking that, well, this is going to take a couple of years. I mean, the United States is not going to allow this guy.
So, and I want people at home to understand that most of these people thought they were going to go back to Cuba.
Definitely.
Sort of soon, within a few years. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's why they moved, a lot of them moved to the United States, moved to New York. Yeah. They moved to Philadelphia, different areas of the States. And thinking that, they would go back to Cuba.
Soon.
But at the end, they realized that was not reality, especially after Bay of Pigs. And so they reconsidered the fact of going back to Spain, which for them was their homeland. And also, that it was Spain was one of the largest importers of Cuban tobaccos because of tradition. Cuba had been part of Spain for many, many years and had a special treatment in Spain towards its products. So basically, it's important. New York plays a very important role in the family history, because that's where they started the business, quote unquote, back again, along with General Cigar Company that was settled in.
Okay, so General Cigar Company is being run out of New York at the time. I forget is it Milton? I forget the name.
It was Edgar Coleman Sr.
Edgar Coleman Sr. So this is the guy who's created General Cigar.
Right.
Okay.
His family.
And these are wealthy New York guys.
Yeah.
And he bought and your family basically licenses or sells to him.
That's correct.
The name Partagas.
Right.
And for the first time, Partagas is available as an American brand.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And also, they created Cifuentes.
Yeah, they also launched a Cifuentes brand and a Ramon Ayones, which also belonged to the, to the family.
Yeah.
There was a 15 years
Wow.
of litigation against Cuba in the United States for the rights of the trademarks, which we ended up, the family, and it was a pool of different factories. They joined together in order to claim, as consequence of the embargo, no Cuban product.
So Cuba tried to stop you guys from using these names?
Definitely. They actually, at that time, they were represented by the Russian embassy in the courts here in the United States. But thank God, I mean, this country is full of people that have a lot of common sense. And it took 15 years, but, they ended up recognizing that the brands belonged to the three brothers.
Yeah.
And since we had the Cuban family had been in the tobacco business for some time, they were not newcomers into the business. Actually, they had different proprietors from Cuba of tobacco, and at that time they were also starting their farming of all the Connecticut farms they have in the States.
Yeah.
So they've been in the tobacco business for many, many years. And it looked like a perfect fit. We reached, like you said, a very long-term agreement with them in order for them to start introducing the brand.
Yeah.
The Partagas brand was first started in Jamaica.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. We got to talk about this, okay? Because a lot of people don't understand. It was when the cigar business was run or was basically exiled from Cuba. The first place they landed was not the Dominican Republic. It was Jamaica. But I believe, and maybe you can shed some light on this, is that because of the cultural differences, it didn't work.
Right.
That's what I believe. People have said a lot of political reasons why this it didn't work because of this. They gloss over this. But I believe two things. One, they speak different languages, okay? So it's hard enough to understand English if you speak Spanish. Now you're understanding English with the patois accent.
Right.
And then culturally, there's just major differences between Jamaican culture and Spanish culture. So I just think it just didn't work out because of that.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, it didn't work out. They were getting very good cigars, but they were not getting the quality they wanted. Also, at that time, Dominican had already started seeding and planting Piloto Cubano, which is, it's Cuban seed planted in Dominican
And
Republic.
it's very good.
And it's very good.
Yeah.
And my uncle, it's uncle, but at the same time, he's my brother, my grandfather's brother, decided, to Ramon, that, it was best to move the production to Dominican because there was an industry going on there.
Yeah,
people were
the
already...
Dutch were already there doing tobacco, which is where the Kellner families come from and all these guys. And culturally, it was more of a fit.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
They speak the same language.
Yeah.
I mean, just that alone makes it easier. So okay, so that's what we have here. Wow, I mean the rich fucking history here is just unbelievable. I hope you guys are at home taking notes right now because it's very, very rare. Most of the stuff we are fed as consumers is great marketing, it's branding, but these are people that are just like me. This is their first generation in the industry. So to have someone come here with generations of experience, understanding, education, and all that, I mean, this is priceless. So, okay, so they end up selling this brand or licensing the brands to General, to the Coleman family, and then what?
Then what? Well, actually, the family has always been in the tobacco business. The Coleman family, they were several brothers. Joe Coleman was that time president of Philip Morris. And, since we had a very tight relationship with Edgar and
These
the
were
family.
big money guys.
Yeah,
this wasn't the industry we're in now.
No.
this is cigarette money. These guys they had a money printing machine going on. I think during the 50s, it was like 1 out of every 4 men over 25 smoked cigars and daily. So I mean, they were doing serious business then. It was a commodity business, less of a craft business than it is now. I don't think that they looked at things as special. Just one brand was better than the other because of the flavor or that kind of thing. But these were all 5-cent cigars.
Yeah. I think that Cuba has for many years, for the last 60 years at least, from my point of view, personal point of view, has taken advantage of the fact that Cuban tobacco is different.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like Nicaraguan tobacco is different, Ecuador tobacco is different, Dominican tobacco is different. Each has its own specific
characteristics.
And taste and But I think Cuba took advantage of the fact that there were several families, among which it's mine, but it's also the Menendez Garcia family, which they own Monte Cristo and A. Chapman, these big brands.
Yeah.
Then you have a lot of people from Galicia and Asturias who had factories. They were not that renowned factories, but they competed to have the best product possible each year. It was not a matter of making money. It was a matter of having pride and being, the best product, the best Cuban product they could make. They didn't make money at factories. I mean, it was not the business it is today. It was mainly owned by families, and it was for them. Being number one was most important.
Yeah.
So when you have that over a 50, 60, 100-year period of time, consistently making the best product, it turns out that spills over onto the product. I try to make a comparison to this. If you get grapes and you take them to Moet Chandon or La Vieux Cricot, and try to make their champagne,
So what
will
you're
not
saying
make
is, we
it.
talk about this all the time, is the soil is almost more important than the seed, because you can take that same seed, you can even grow it in a different region in the same country, and it's a total different plant.
Completely different. But not only that, it's that the care they took of the seed. You know,
What I notice is each of the countries has their own traditional way of curing, fermenting, and Nicaragua
even rolling, huh?
even rolling, and Nicaragua has gotten more of the Cuban tradition, because there's a lot of Cuban exiles there that went there to start these factories.
Well, I think I mean at the end of the day, Nicaragua has rocketed, you know, and I think this is thanks to people like Nestor Placencia, which I know is a great guy, and AJ Fernandez.
AJ Fernandez.
Is another great guy, but people that care for the product to the highest level.
Yeah.
And that, they take care of the tobacco as if it was their babies.
Yeah.
So out of that, and when you start converting that into cigars, and consistently start making good cigars, now out of nothing, you have, Dominican is second, Nicaragua is first. Wrapper-wise, the Ecuador is very good as well. So
let's talk about that for a minute. So one thing I want people at home to understand is the idea of puros is almost out the window at this point. And the reason why Cuba was so special, not just because of how delicious the tobacco is, but you were making an entire cigar out of tobacco from one place. Now, the Dominican Republic is doing this. Some would argue, but for the most part, it's really not done anymore. Most of your Nicaraguan, even stuff that's marketed to you as puros, are not purely Nicaraguan. Ecuador grows 90% of the wrapper on the market. Something
Correct.
Like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You have Ecuador, you have a little bit of Pennsylvania, you have a little bit of Connecticut, but for the most part, most wrappers are coming out of Ecuador, and they're the most beautiful wrappers anyone's ever seen. They're gorgeous. Nicaragua has been able to pull off some wrapper, but I think it's been a little bit more marketing than anything else.
I think it's probably Nestor, or
well,
for that matter.
Frank Yanessa, when he went with the Oliva tobacco growing family out of Tampa, when they first started going to Esteli and Jalapa, he found in Jalapa what he said was the prettiest wrapper he's ever seen. And Frank Yanessa is a name that you guys are going to start hearing a lot more of around here. It's got something, right? Jalapa tobacco is special tobacco. And these were guys that were used to traditional Cuban tobacco. Honduras was another place where there were times where they were able to grow tobacco there that was comparable to their original traditional
you
Cuban
have, and
tobacco.
there you have Christian Eiroa, which is a
amazing.
wonderful product, and not only a great guy as well, but also, he learned from his family, and he learned from Davidoff, and he learned, he learned from the industry and nurtured his product.
Right, and so his father was hooked up with the Oliva growing tobacco growing family out of Tampa, and they brought him over there with some of the original Cuban seed before the blue mold plague changed Cuban tobacco, which brings me to a very important point. Around the 90s, something changed in Cuban tobacco. Okay, and that was this blue mold plagued Cuban tobacco. There were years where they weren't able to produce tobacco because of this fungus. And so they hybridized Cuban seed. Some people say it's the original Corojo seed with Peruvian Pelo de Oro. There's all types of rumors about what it really is. I don't think anyone can really answer us. There's been a few answers. There's a guy named Danielle something or other. His name always comes up in this conversation. But the bottom line is Cuban tobacco isn't the same Cuban tobacco they were smoking pre-91, 92. Okay, so here you are. It's 2023. The world is completely upside down. Nothing makes sense anymore. And you say, you know what? I want to live this legacy on. I
Right,
want to
right.
continue this.
Yeah.
In something that's probably not a huge money-making proposition for you. It's more out of passion, love, tradition, family.
There you go. Yeah.
Which
100%.
is 100%.
100%.
Beautiful. People don't realize that. They think the cigar business is like, it's a passion project. It is.
It is. Well, actually, this first edition was going to be, it's the Cabinet series, but was going to be called the Tribute series. Because for me, the whole project is a tribute to my great-grandfather, to my grandfather, to my father, and to 150 years of tobacco producing, and a legacy at the end of the day.
So I heard you mention in an interview with Cigar Aficionado that Cuban cigars were stronger than they are now.
Yeah.
Before the 90s.
I would say that they rather than being, stronger is a good word, but I think
more
flavorful.
More flavorful.
There you
more
go.
Flavorful.
It's that's something that's that is. There might be a factor, as you mentioned, of the blue mold and
different
and
tobacco, different times,
and having to work with the Cuban seed, in order to save it.
Yep.
But it was
more full body.
It was more full body and flavorful, and you knew there was a distinctive taste to a Cuban cigar.
Yes.
That's something I've tried to capture, and I try to bring back when designing this. At the end, and you're 100% right, Brian. Puro, it's 100% made from one country. It doesn't matter if it's Cuba. Yeah. Well, it was usually used for Cuban cigars, but today, you have a pure puro from Dominican.
Which is new.
Fuente
started that.
Yeah.
That's one thing you got to give the family a lot of credit.
Yeah.
They were the first people to grow a wrapper leaf in Dominican Republic. Until the 90s, they never, ever even tried to make a full-on cigar with just Dominican tobacco.
No, because it was mainly filler and mainly, other types of tobacco.
Yeah.
But
so you wanted to make a traditional Cuban cigar, and you went to the one factory that can absolutely do it, which is El Titan de Bronze on Calle Ocho in Miami.
Right.
These are rollers from these factories.
Sure.
Some of them are just here now. Some of them have been here for 10 years, but they all come from these factories. They've all been trained by Level 9 rollers, which is the best of the best. And Sandy and her daughter,
Giselle.
Giselle, great family, just great people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I sat with them and explained the project to them, and told them, I wanted to bring back certain things, like things that usually were taken for granted in Cuba or in Cuban tobaccos and are not present anymore. Like, for example, the cedar sheet that it's inside the boxes. That people might think that cedar is there because they couldn't find another wood so thin. No. Cedar has its purpose in the tobacco. It's mainly, it prevents mold. It balances the humidity in the box. Thank you so much. It balances the humidity in the box.
Okay.
And on top of that, it adds flavor.
Okay.
So I explained to them the product, and they loved it. They said, yes, we will manufacture for you. And I'm really grateful for that, because I'm in tobacco business, after all.
Yeah.
And not only cigar business. And I've taken large projects to them. I say, no, forget it.
Yeah, they can't.
We're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
We're manufacturing for you because you are you.
Yeah.
We don't wanna sacrifice volume for quality.
I'm one of the last clients they've ever taken on.
I know.
I'm honored that they even
you should be,
talked to me.
and I spoke to Giselle. I was telling her I was going to be here with you, and she's got very good regards to you. So,
wonderful.
So it's definitely, people like to call El Titán de Bronce a chinchal. A chinchal is a small factory. To me, it's a great factory. It's big as any, but it just doesn't sacrifice quantity for quality. It's that simple. And they don't want to do it, and I understand. And definitely, there's people there that there's a girl there, last time I was there, that had, been working up to, I think it was 5 years ago, was working at the Partagas factory in Cuba.
Yeah.
So it is people that it's so well taught in the industry that really make it.
Chinchale to me, it's here. I'll give you the. Is it still it? Chinchale to me means, I think it has a negative connotation.
Definitely.
Right? It's like a
100%.
shitty little factory.
Yeah.
But this isn't a shitty little factory.
Not at
This
all.
is a beautiful little factory.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Craft.
Well, they call themselves a boutique manufacturer. I think they're even more than a boutique manufacturer.
Craft. I call it craft.
Yeah.
Everything's hands-on with them.
Yeah.
So the thing with them is they're doing it in the traditional Cuban style. What's the traditional Cuban style? One is there's one roller. So when you go to Dominican Republic, when you go to Nicaragua, when you go to the mass production factories, you have a buncher that puts it in the binder, and then you have the roladera or whatever. There's a torso. Yeah, there's a million names, but they put the wrapper leaf on. So they do it in pairs, and they're able to make more cigars that way. Okay. In a traditional Cuban factory, they don't do that.
No, they don't do that.
They also use something called the triple cap method, which takes a little longer. There's an extra step involved. So it's truly the original way.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of factories in Dominican and in Nicaragua as well. They're using the bunching machine. At the end of the day,
The Lieberman.
yeah, that's something that came into the industry. Like at its time, the mold came in, right? But when you're doing it the traditional way, that person that does that cigar has to have his hand or her hand trained for the exact amount of tobacco, of the size he's making. In Cuba, I think it is El Titan. People made different vitolas. Not everybody made all vitolas. There were people who specialized.
The way I understand it is when you reach level 9, you're able to do all the vitolas.
There you go.
Yeah. And women make better cigar rollers.
Definitely,
The smaller hands,
definitely.
more agile.
No, they have when you do this manually, you have to be very careful of the amount of tobacco you put in there, because at the end of the day, you want the same caliber, you want the same size. So it's definitely. Women have always been in the tobacco business. Forever. They've been in the different stages, and now even they are, become CEOs and producing their own excellent products.
There is no, to me, there is very few, if not no factory like El Titan. I can taste something in all of their cigars. All of the cigars that they make for their clients each have their own personality,
Definitely.
Yet there is something in there that I say, that's El Titan. And it's a beautiful aroma of, it must come from their aging room maybe, I don't know. Tell me about the blend.
This blend has been developed by me, and which I'm the least important of them all. I've had help from Manolo Quesada, I've had help from Benjamin Menendez. When Benjamin Menendez, 30-something. He's already, retired, but he's the former owner of the Monte Cristo and H. Upmann brand in Cuba.
Wow.
He worked at the factory along the same period of time my father worked. They lived some kind of parallel lives.
That's Benjamin Menendez.
Benjamin Menendez, that's correct. There's different people that have given. This cigar has. Cigars take a long time, especially the blending takes a long time, because you want to be able to pick the finest tobacco. You want to be able to recreate something different, like you said, and that's really where El Titan really excels.
Yes.
They're
more expensive. It's probably the most expensive factory to produce out of.
Oh yeah, in the States it is.
It's made in the States, so that makes it even more expensive. But boy, oh boy, do they make a phenomenal product. And that's why the stuff that comes out of there, they're producing a limited quantity per year. Per client, they'll tell you, we don't want to make, we don't want the 100,000 orders, 10,000 max, and the whole shebang. I mean, these are special cigars.
You know, they presently work in, I mean, they manufacture for La Gloria Cubana, and the Stopper Carrillo's brand that was sold to.
And it got amazing reviews.
Yeah, no, it's a very good. I mean, there's the Calle Ocho, the Calle Ocho cigar is it's phenomenal.
They did a cigar for us last year. It's going to be in the club in 2024. We call it Raspberry Beret. It's a very beautiful cigar.
They manufacture also for Cohiba and
they did that
Miami
for
Cohiba.
yeah. $30 cigar.
Yeah, it's a very good cigar. They manufacture for Padilla, Ernesto Padilla. You know him as.
That's how I got introduced to them.
Good. They produce also. Well, they recently produced a Partagas of bronze.
Yes, that was fantastic.
That was fantastic. Yeah. That's a $22 stick. That is
the Blondie for La Palina.
The Blondie for La Palina.
Yeah. It's a well-known
beautiful
cigar. Beautiful cigar.
And so
she won't even put, because if you go there and you bring her an original idea, for instance, the Blondie has a certain type of cap, she won't do it for any other client.
The pigtail.
Yeah. But with me, she did one where she'll twist it, but she won't leave it open because La Palina, So they're very cognizant of
the product that they make, and at the end of the day, you feel like you feel like family with them, because they are, and there's things that they won't do for you because they're doing for somebody else. They have to maintain their exclusivity, and it's like this blend, for example. This blend that took some time to develop and had all these people involved in. I'm for sure it's not a blend that El Titan is going to reproduce any other place.
No.
And that's that's because they have true values, and they have build up a reputation, and Sandy and Giselle just
amazing.
Want to make the best product.
I have to get down there soon to film there, because we need to document this while it's still exactly how it is. Rafa, this is in Brian's box. I'm putting this in Brian's box. I couldn't put it in the club because there weren't enough, but I put it in Brian's box club for that's in December. That will be in December's box.
Fantastic.
The leftover, there might be 100 left over that we'll sell online, and it's a beautiful thing. Each box is numbered by hand. We have beautiful. You'll get B-roll of this, and this is a beautiful smoking experience. It's just rich and clean and nice, and I think this will satisfy full body, but medium plus.
There you go. To me, it's a medium notch.
Yeah.
I wanted something that enthusiasts and aficionados, but also it's somebody that is coming into the tobacco, into cigar smoking, could enjoy, and it to me the difference in the blends at the end of the day, it's when are you going to smoke it? Are you going to smoke it in the morning, or are you going to smoke it with lunch or at dinner? I'm being honest, Brian. I think the American consumer is much more, has a probably because of the Cuban dominance in Europe. The American smoker has a richer palate.
Definitely.
They've been able to choose, different origins, different blends, and so when you launch a product like this to them, and they know where it comes from, they really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. No, this is hitting on all cylinders. This is not the lightest cigar. This is not. It's not. This is a modern take on Cuban cigars.
Very well.
For sure. This is really, really good. But I could see a lot of people who don't always love Cuban cigars loving this. Fuller in body, rich though, very, very just rich in flavor, rich in sensation, and it's not taxing my palate either. Really beautiful job. Rafa, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this story with us.
It's a pleasure.
It's our pleasure, and it's we're lucky to be able to get this.
Let me know when you're going to be in El Titan. If it's possible, we could drop by Benji's house.
Really?
I'd like to meet him. It'd be my pleasure to introduce you.
Oh my God!
And
wow!
And smoke a cigar with them.
I'm gonna set it up fast then. We're gonna call them when we get off this.
Sure.
Wow! Thank you
It'll
so
be my
much.
pleasure.
I appreciate you, and I look forward to getting this into the hands of a lot of consumers that really love cigars.
Thank you so much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure, Brian.